Good morning, YouTube. It is now 7:39 a.m. I woke up about 3 hours ago. Yeah, at about 4:30 or something. Yeah, I go to bed around 10 o'clock, and it actually helps me get up earlier in the day. But, okay, I'm here to review a movie, Joyride. Okay, so this is one of my favorite movies. The reason I got it was I remember I heard a little bit about the movie Joyride when I was younger, and then I saw it over at Walmart, and I was I've watched a lot of movies with Paul Walker over the years. I've watched all the Fast and the Furious movies he was in. He was in the Fast and the Furious, or no, he was in the Fast and the Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious, Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, and some of Furious 7. He was also in Joyride. So, what is Joyride about? Here we go. And, by the way, check this movie out. It's very underrated, and it should be noticed more. I mean, in the cover art's kind of interesting. And it's got Steve Zahn, Paul Walker, and Leelee Sobieski or something. Yeah. Out of all three of these, I think Paul Walker should be the main. Paul Walker is more or less the main character about it. They think it's Steve Zahn, but I think it's Paul Walker. On Wikipedia, it said Paul Walker was the main character, but let's get to discussion. Okay, so we open up with Paul Walker's character talking to a girl he has a crush on named Venna. I think he goes to a payphone, calls his mom, and she tells him that his brother, who's played by Steve Zahn, Fuller, was back in prison. So Paul Walker's character, Lewis went to go take him out, and then they went on a road trip, and they got a CB radio, and they were talking to guys. So Paul Walker, Steve Zahn's character, was talking on the CB radio and said his name was Black Sheep, and then right here, Paul Walker used a girly voice going, "Hey there, Black Sheep, this is Candy Cane," or something like that, and then a trucker started talking to them on the CB radio, and he went by Rusty Nail, so he was following these two, Paul Walker and Steve Zahn, or he wasn't following them yet, sorry, got ahead of myself there, but then, Paul Walker and Steve Zahn went to a motel to check in for the night, and Steve Zahn got pissed off. There was a cranky man bitching at the night manager who got into a fight. He was getting into a bitching fight. His name was, I forgot what his name was. It was like Ronald Ellinghouse or something Ellinghouse, and they were watching TV. Paul Walker and Steve Zahn, Lewis and Fuller, and they said, "Hit the TV," because Rusty Nail had talked to Paul Walker, as we said, on the CB radio. They lost service, and then they started talking again. He said, "I'll be at the Lone Star Motel," and they told him the room number, and they were in the other room, and they asked him to bring pink champagne. So what he did, he said, "Who the hell is this?" Or Mr. Ellinghouse said, "Who the hell is it?" Because he rammed Steve Zahn with his shoulder, so he wanted to get revenge. So he told Paul Walker to talk Mr. Rusty Nail to come to the hotel room. So they went to the other hotel room, and he knocked on the door. And Mr. Ellinghouse was like, "Who the hell is it?" And he said, "I brought the drink. I brought the pink champagne." He said, "Who are you, Black Sheep?" And he said, why don't you come over here, standing in the dark, and then you hear, mm-hmm. And then Paul Walker thought Rusty Nail got hurt. So he called the hotel manager, and and something funny Steve Zahn said was, you know what's gonna happen now? The prick's gonna kill the night manager, that the big guy who he met, Ronald Ellinghouse, since he hadn't gotten any sleep, was gonna kill the night manager. But then Rusty Nail picked it up and said everything was fine. But then they were questioned by the police. The Paul Walker and Steve Zahn were questioned by the police, and then they found out what happened. So it appears that Steve Zahn wanted to get some revenge. Sorry, I keep on showing this, but what happened was they made a terrible mistake. And if you want to figure out what happened, he said, I'm thinking taking a little look-see might refreshify your memory. And he said, take a look-see at what? And it appears that Rusty Nail ripped off. Oh man, this is the terrible part of the movie. He said, this was the spooky part. And then he said, take a look-see at what? Mr. Ellinghouse was in a coma. He said, ripped his jaw. And he went clean off. How do you rip someone's jaw off? You do it with your hands or something? So then Paul Walker and Steve Zahn were in the told what happened, and then the sheriff said, that is the pain in my ass. And he said, my own personal files I gotta deal with. And he said, now I got a new one, Mr. Ronald Ellinghouse. Why? Because you little sorry asses thought you would have fun, or you punks thought you'd have a little bit of fun, something like that. And then about that, he said, you got out of prison when? Yesterday? And Paul Walker asked before they talked to Rusty Nail on the CB radio about coming to the hotel. He said, do you just love prison so much? And the thing is, they were in this hotel, they were in a different room, and Rusty Nail was in the other one. So then he was on the radio again, and he said, candy cane, candy cane. He's like, candy cane, you out there? He's like, candy cane. And he said, anybody out there know Candy Cane or Mama's Boy, Baa Black Sheep? Then Paul Walker woke up fuller and fuller one. He said, hey, hey, Russell, this is Black Sheep, go to 23. And he said, hey, Black Sheep, do you know where I can find Candy Cane? He's like, something like, what is your deal? I'm looking for Candy Cane. So you've been driving around everywhere looking for a voice. I think you can tell me where to find her. And then I think Paul Walker said, tell me it was a joke. And he said, I talked about hold on. I think he said something along the lines of, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, it was something along the lines of, tell me it was a joke. And he said, I talked to Candy Cane about last night, and she said she's not interested in you or your pink champagne, something like that. And he said, I need to find Candy Cane. And Paul and Steve Zahn's like, almost like, are you serious? And he's like, you need to find a highly qualified psychiatrist, not a psychologist, and you need some drugs, because the cops are all over your ass. And he's like, and he says God, and then says the D word. I'm not going to say that because I'm religious. I'm a very religious person, even though I might come off as being angry sometimes and cuss a lot. I am religious. And then here comes Paul Walker with, hey, Rusty Nail, you hear this? Look, that was me. I'm a guy. It was just a joke. And he said, apologize. And he said, And Steve Zahn's like, "You're right." And Paul Walker's like, "Do it." And he said, "Apologize to him?" "Yeah." And then Paul Walker's like, "Yo, I'll do it." And he said, "Listen, you sick fuck." I don't know what he said word for word, but let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Let me think. Let me think really quick. He said, Listen, you sick fuck. You pathetic, lonely, walkie-talker, freak show motherfucker. You're not getting anything from me. You know why? Because I got something more powerful than your psychosis. It's called a volume knob. All I need to do is to make you go ways to counterclockwise. You got that? You copy that? And he said, Black Sheep, you really ought to get that fixed. And he said, "Get what fixed?" And he said, "Your tail light." And of course that wasn't a good idea. That wasn't a good thing to toy with someone like that, because now he was following them. So, and he said, "You say anything?" "Yeah, cars and trucks, let's just go." And he said, "Just drive." Something like that. And he's like, and then they stopped at a gas station. They took an exit to go get gas because they were almost out. And then they see a trucker, and he has a club in his hand. And then they were getting scared, and then they just left. And then that guy came and followed them, and they were getting scared. And he said, "Lewis," and he said, "Stay the fuck back, man. We got a gun." And he said, "And I got a MasterCard." And it wasn't Rusty Nail. This guy had a club with him, and he worked for an ice factory, right? Like he was like an ice trucker, like a guy who would deliver ice to people. And then he got crashed into by Rusty Nail. But the club he was actually carrying was the thumper tire. And he said, "What was that thing?" And he said, "My tire thumper? Shit, just checking pressure." He said, "Oh yeah, the pressure thing." And he was just thumping his tires, and then Rusty Nail crashed into him after he left, and then he ran right into I think he crashed into the ice truck guy and just broke the back of his car. And then at the end, he crashed into them, and he said, "We apologize. We're just playing with you, man." And he said, and Rusty Nail's like, "Why?" And he said, "Just for a laugh." And he said, "A laugh? Just for fun." And he said, and he kind of chuckled and said, "Well, I was just playing with you, man." And then they went and got the car fixed, and then they took out the radio, the CB radio they had after they got the car fixed, and threw the voice box thing, the CB radio, away out the window. And then he went and picked up Venna, and quite frankly, he was in love with Venna. And then they met her friend Charlotte, her next to be roommate, and then they went to the bar. It was Paul Walker and Steve Zahn and Lily Sobieski were gonna go to the bar. They went to the bar, and then they went up to their hotel rooms, and Steve Zahn went over to talk to Lily, and I think he was trying to kiss her, but I think Paul Walker was in love with Lily Sobieski in this movie. And then Paul Walker was getting a call on the phone, and he was like, "Fuller, get the phone." And he was asleep. And he grabbed the phone and went, "Hello?" And of course, you know who's gonna call. It was Rusty Nail, who said, "Now I thought you said there was no girl." And he said, "What? You said there was no girl?" And I said, "Fuller." And he said, "Listen, there isn't any girl." And he said, "What's you doing in the other room with your brother?" And then he went and woke up and got Fuller and Venna and told him that Rusty Nail was out there. He said, "He's out there." "What, Rusty Nail?" "Yeah, he's out there. And he's watching us. There's some guy watching us." And he said that he called and said, and he said, and then he said, "I thought there was no girl." Then he said, "What were you doing in here?" Which is an excellent question, or I think he might have cussed. And then he said, "We're leaving." And she said, "I already paid for this room." And he said, "Just do it." And she said, "How scared am I supposed to be?" And then the phone was ringing. He said, "Much more than usual." And then they were walking away, or they were running out, and then there was something spray painted, and they said, "This Rusty Nail guy did something?" He said, "Yeah, because of something we did." And she said, "What did you do?" And then the radios, there were signs that said, "Look in the trunk, Lewis." One said "Look," and one said "In the trunk," and then the next one said "Lewis." And he said, "There's signs spray painted there. He won't look in the trunk." And he said, "Signs? What makes them think they're for us?" And he pointed and said "Look," and it said "Lewis." And then something that was going on was Steve Zahn was taking a look at that, or Steve Zahn they went in the trunk and they saw that the radio was in there. Sorry. And they said it's a pretty elaborate thing to do, paint those signs. And he said, no, don't open it. Why? What if there's a head or a body in there? Could be a bomb. Then don't open it. Or him. They said they don't want to open up the trunk, but they wanted to see what was in there. And then they said, "We don't talk on it." And she said, I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me why I should be afraid of a radio." That's what Venna said. And then they called, and he said, "Candy Cane, are you out there?" And he said, and Rusty Nail was like, "Candy Cane, are you out there?" He said, "Oh, that's right. I don't mean my candy cane. I mean yours, Venna." And she said, "How's he know my name?" And he said, "Let him talk all he wants. Just tell him where we're going." And I said, "You know when a corpse can't be identified? No next of kin? No one to claim the body? What they do is they cut off all the fingers, all 10 of them. Or practically it's 8, because these are thumbs and not fingers." And he said, and they cut off the jaw. They cut off the person's jaw, and they put in the jar with some number on it. And then they hear a woman whimpering, and then she's like, "Venna!" And then Venna said, "That's Charlotte." And they said, "What? That's Charlotte? That girl, your roommate?" And she said, "Yeah." And they said, "What the hell do you want?" And he wanted them to go to the Lion Truck parking lot. And she said, "Venna, please help me," or something like that. And he said, "And if you go to the police, I will take her apart piece by piece." Excuse me. Then they said, "We're here. Okay, here's what I want. Fuller, Lewis, I want you to go inside, or I want you two to go inside, take a seat at the counter, order 6 cheeseburgers each. What about Vanna? She stays put, but you two are going in there naked." And he said, "Naked?" And he said, "If we go in there, Dick's hanging, they'll just call the police." And he said, "Oh, it's just for fun." they said keep the car running, and they went in naked, and they thought it was a fraternity stunt. And then they were gonna call the police, but then they ordered 6 cheeseburgers. But then Venna honked the horn, and then they ran out to go follow Rusty Nail, I guess, and then she said, they told you what they did to you? And she said, I'm very sorry. And she said, and she said, I'm very sorry. And he said, it's a little late for that, isn't it? I bet your friends had a really good laugh seeing me in the rain holding my bottle. And she said, sometimes people don't think what they're doing. And then they ran out into a corn maze, and then he took Venna, and then and they ran into a corn maze after she honked the horn, took them out, and then they went into the corn maze and they were running away. He took Venna to a hotel room, and he was gonna pull a joke. So what happened was this: at partway after into this movie, or towards the end, he took them into a corn maze, and then they were gonna. Lewis hijacked a car by hot wire, and then they drove off to go save Venna. So what happened was they went into the hotel room, and one said, and then Fuller said, don't open the door, because he had a gun in there, a loaded gun that was gonna shoot what's her face, Venna. He's gonna shoot Venna, but then Steve Zahn got enough time to say, don't open the door, and then he let go, and then Fuller had a pipe stuck in his leg, and then the gun, and then he came out to help, because what Rusty Nail did was he stepped on the pole and lodged it deeper into Fuller's leg. And then the police were showing up, and then he went in to save Venna and pulled her down while the police were checking the room, and then he pulled her down, and then the gun shot, and then they thought Paul Walker, or they had their guns pointed at Paul Walker, but then he ran out because Steve was like, Lewis! He was like, Lewis! And he said, that's my brother out there. He said, get back on the ground. And he said, hey, don't you shoot. And he said, hey, stay with the girl. And he said, ah. And he's like, hey. And he's like, Paul. And he was pulling the pipe out, or pulling his leg out of it. And then they said, freeze. No, freeze. And then Paul Walker's like, Lewis is like, shut the truck. And then Lewis is like, shoot the truck. And this is not going to stop. And then they started shooting at the truck, and when I was watching the commentary, they said now they take his word for it, and they said it's easier when a truck's bearing down on you. So they started to shoot the truck and empty rounds, like 3 or 4, and then the car was coming, crashing in their direction, and then Paul Walker or Lewis had just managed to pull the pipe out of Fuller and went off to the side and got him out of the way, got him out of harm's way. And then they said it was some trucker named Jones, said that he worked for some ice factory. But that must have been the ice trucker guy, because he crashed into him, but he might not have killed him. And J.J. Abrams, the guy who wrote the script to this, who directed the new Star Wars, said that he must have been trying to keep an eye on him. He wrote the script to this, and then Charlotte was safe. Venna hugged Charlotte at the end, and maybe apologized to her and just gave her a hug. And then at the end, you hear Rusty Nail's alive at the very end. There's something I have to say. Check out this movie. Very underrated. It builds up a lot of suspense. Even Eric Vierthaler, my friend from YouTube, Eric Vierthaler92, said that this movie had a lot of suspense. That he was watching in his bed and he said he was jumping or something about it. He said the suspense was really good. This movie is worth your money. The second and third I didn't like so much, so I got rid of them. I gave them to Eric because I didn't want them anymore, and then I found a copy of the first one that I sent to him in mail, and then he took it, and he really liked the first one. He didn't like the second and the third as much as the first. The second and third were just a little too gruesome to me. The second, you get hot metal burned into your chest. Yeah. That's all I have to say. This one was really good. It builds up suspense. You never see the killer, so he's more mysterious. And I want to thank you all for watching. Stay up to date and subscribe. Check out this movie. Very underrated. Very good. This came out before or after the first Fast and the Furious, and the trucker is voiced by Ted Levine as Rusty Nail, but he's not credited. That was just the voice, but here's how it went. Ted Levine was uncredited. He was the voice of Rusty Nail only, and then the killer, or he was also in the Fast and the Furious and a movie called Little Boy, which I've seen before. And then there was another guy in there. Yeah, there was Rusty Nail, the voice, and then there was Matthew Camboni, a last name I can't pronounce. There we go, I got it. This is who the killer originally was without the voice.
Matthew Kimbrough.
Matthew Kimbrough, and he wasn't credited either. But I'd like you all to stay up to date and subscribe and check out this movie because it's worth it. Alright, peace out.